The light in the alien chamber was cold and metallic, pulsing in slow, deliberate intervals. Each flicker exposed Sergeant Dana Rios in cruel fragments, suspended in a gravity harness, wrists locked above her head, boots barely brushing the floor. Her skin was bruised, her lips cracked from dehydration. 3 insected drones hovered in a perfect arc before her, their lenses unblinking. A low hum from their cores filled the air, feeding a live signal across half the galaxy. The door parted with a hiss, and High Inquisitor Vrakhaldar entered. His frame dominated the space, 8 feet of sinewed muscle beneath crimson-black scales, ceremonial plates etched with jagged script clinging to his torso. His yellow eyes glowed faintly, locking on Rios as if she were an animal in a pen. "You are being watched by millions," he said in flawless Terran standard, his voice carrying the weight of someone certain of victory. "Your people will see what happens to those who trespass." Rios spat blood onto the deck. "They'll see a coward who needs an audience." The drones adjusted their focus, catching the faint curve of a smirk at the edge of his mouth. "You mistake theater for cowardice. This is deterrence." A long needle slid from a gauntlet on his forearm. He pressed it against her skin, not piercing, just resting, the threat more potent than the pain to come. "They will think twice before sending more of you into our space." She didn't flinch. "We don't think twice. Earth orbit, United Terran Federation Security Council chamber." The feed played across the main holoscreen, the alien interrogation room stretched to wall size. Shadows from the flickering light danced across the faces of the gathered officials. No one spoke until the chamber's soundproofing panel sealed with a dull click. Director Ilara Voss stood at the far end of the table, arms folded. Her black operations uniform carried no insignia. "This is a breach of the Accords. The Dominion signed against prisoner mistreatment." Counselor Wex slammed a hand on the table. "Then we hit them. Fleets strike on the Bloodfang before they'll kill her before the ships are in range." Voss cut in. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge like a blade drawn in slow silence. Another counselor leaned forward. "So what do we do? Sit here and watch?" Voss's gaze swept the room. "We send someone who can get her out before they even realize we were there." A murmur of unease passed among the officials. One man shifted uncomfortably. "You're talking about him?" "Yes," Voss said. "The Ghost. Black Site Facility, orbit of Luna." The chamber was unlit except for a single beam on a steel table. Elias Kane sat in the center, hands clasped, eyes half in shadow. His features were lean, angles sharpened by years of work done in places without light. Voss entered, closing the door behind her. "You're supposed to be dead." "Officially, I am." His tone carried no humor. She set a data slate on the table, images of the Bloodfang, Rios in the harness, Dominion deck schematics. "You know the target?" "Vrakhaldar," Kane said without looking at the images. "Sadist. Structured thinker. Will underestimate an enemy if it doesn't fit his frame of war. Then you know why I'm here. We need her out, alive. Quietly. No trail. Messages don't breathe," Kane said. "This one does." Kane studied the hollow map of the alien ship. "Outer hull patrol drones. Sensor webs?" "Both," Voss confirmed. "We've acquired limited codes for the maintenance conduits. They're obsolete, but the Dominion's not in the habit of upgrading low-priority systems." He pushed the slate back to her. "You've got a departure window?" 70 hours before their fleet rendezvous." Kane stood, the chair sliding back without a sound. "Then I'm already late." Transit, infiltration craft Blackbird. The Blackbird was no larger than a cargo pod, its hull layered with sensor-absorbing material. Kane sat strapped in, helmet at his side, eyes fixed on the view ahead. The Bloodfang floated against the backdrop of an asteroid cluster, its hull bristling with weapons and antennae. The craft moved without engine burn, using microbursts from compressed gas thrusters. Kane's HUD tracked the patrol cycles of the surrounding ships, timing his drift between their scans. He could feel the weight of silence, no comm chatter, no backup. If anything went wrong, there would be no rescue. He reached into a compartment, pulling out a thin case. Inside were alien data crystals, stolen from a Dominion courier years ago. Their encryption keys matched the Bloodfang's maintenance systems. The broadcast continues, Zorath flagship. Rios's knees buckled as Vrakhol deactivated the gravity harness, letting her drop onto the cold deck. He circled her slowly, speaking now in his native tongue, deep, guttural tones that vibrated through the floor. She didn't understand the words, but the meaning was clear. He believed she was broken. The feed carried her image back to Earth, where the Security Council still watched in grim silence. Somewhere in that silence, the Blackbird slid unseen past the Dominion's outer sentry. Final movements, closing in. Kane adjusted his breathing, keeping it steady as he latched the Blackbird to the alien hull. His gloves magnetized with a click, and he began to crawl to an access hatch no larger than a manhole cover. A tiny plasma cutter flared for a moment, then went dark, the hatch easing open without triggering alarms. The air inside was colder, laced with a metallic tang. He slipped in, sealing the hatch behind him. Back in the interrogation room, Vrakhol leaned close to Rios, claws resting against the deck beside her face. "Your fleet will see this and lose all hope," he said. Rios forced her head up, eyes bloodshot but defiant. "Hope's the thing you never see coming." Vrakhol's gaze narrowed. Something in her tone unsettled him, though he couldn't place why. Kane, internal systems deck. Kane moved soundlessly through narrow conduits, marking guard positions and camera sweeps on his visor overlay. He passed the security node, paused, and slid one of the data crystals into the alien console. Lights flickered, cycling through false diagnostic codes. Far above, on the detention level, a maintenance light dimmed. Then another. Shadows pooled along the corridor. Chapter closer. The Blackbird's external camera showed the Bloodfang looming like a black fortress in the void. Kane's voice, low and certain, broke the silence of his comms log. "I'm coming." The maintenance conduit was barely wide enough for Kane's shoulders. His breath moved in slow, measured draws, each one timed with the thrum of the Bloodfang's reactor to mask vibration sensors. He clipped a pulse jammer to the wall, its low hum sliding beneath the alien ship's baseline noise. A nearby sensor eye flickered, then dimmed. Through his visor, he traced the map overlay, thin blue lines marking his projected route. Detention was 4 decks up, across the inner hull, and deep inside the Dominion's most secure sector. He would need to bypass 2 security cores without tripping their silent alerts. A hatch ahead hissed faintly as he eased it open. Beyond was a vertical shaft lined with glowing conduits. He hooked his tether to the frame, swinging himself silently across. Halfway through, a shadow passed the opening above, Zorath guard, moving with the heavy, deliberate steps of someone confident in their domain. Kane stayed motionless until the sound faded. Detention level, Rios. The cell was cold enough for her breath to fog. Her wrists were swollen from the restraints. The door slid open and Vrakhol stepped inside, a tray of glistening vials in hand. "You've lasted longer than most," he said. "But the body has limits. Soon your mind will beg for release." Rios met his gaze, her voice dry but steady. "I've been begging for you to shut up since day one." His jaw tightened. "Do you think your insolence matters?" "It matters to me," she said, and leaned forward enough to make him stop in place. "And maybe to the one who's already here." Vrakhol paused, scanning the ceiling as though expecting movement. Then he smiled faintly and set the tray down. "Lower decks, Kane." Kane slid into a shadowed alcove as 2 guards passed. The guttural rhythm of their conversation carried faintly, complaints about malfunctioning lights, an unease they didn't want to admit. He planted another pulse jammer. Lights in the corridor beyond flickered in irregular patterns, like something was breathing in the dark. A minute later, a 3rd guard turned the corner, saw the dimming stretch of hallway, and hesitated. Kane waited for the exact moment the guard's attention shifted, then moved. A single strike to the alien's throat silenced him. The body eased into a coolant duct. Security Core 1. The room was circular, lined with tall, spined servers. Dominion text scrolled across the walls in thin light bands. Kane crossed to the central console, inserted a data crystal, and watched as the alien glyphs distorted into looping nonsense. The false diagnostics would keep the core reading normal while masking his signal. From here, he patched into the detention feed. Rios's vitals were weak but steady. Vrochol's voice came over the channel, taunting, deliberate. Kane switched it off. He didn't need words clouding his focus. Detention level, Vrochol and Rios. You speak as if someone could walk into my ship, Vrochol said. Rios smirked faintly, though the effort cost her. Not walk. Ghosts don't walk. He stepped closer. Ghosts aren't real. In the ventilation shaft above, Kane placed a small sensor on the grate and began recording. Psychological war begins. The lower deck started reporting movement, footsteps in empty halls, tools missing from workstations, ventilation hatches unsealed. Kane injected faint bursts of ultrasonic noise into the ship's audio grid. The frequency sat just below Zorath hearing comfort, setting nerves on edge. Crew whispers began circulating, an intruder no one could see, someone moving without tripping alarms. Security Core 2. Kane approached the final core, heavily guarded. 4 soldiers stood at fixed posts. No shadows to hide in here. He slid a coin-sized device down the corridor. It stopped midway, emitting a faint, rhythmic tapping. The guards turned toward the sound. In that fraction of distraction, Kane rolled a flash mine into their midst. The burst was silent, only visible on Zorath infrared, which overwhelmed their optics. By the time they blinked the interference away, he was past them, the data crystal already in the core. First contact, indirect. With both cores feeding false readings, Kane patched into the interrogation chamber's comms. His voice emerged from the wall speakers, deep and clear in Vrochol's own language. She leaves with me. You'll wonder for the rest of your life how. Vrochol froze mid-step. His gaze swept the corners, then the ceiling. The feed's viewers saw his first true hesitation. Rios's lips curved in a small, pained smile. Vrochol's reaction. He tapped his comm. Seal all access points. Triple guard rotation. Nothing in or out. The ship's alarms blared, a low, vibrating tone. Kane, deep inside the maintenance ducts, moved faster now. The lockdown meant shorter windows, but also that patrols would be drawn away from less critical areas. Reaching the cell block. The detention corridor was lit only by emergency strips along the floor. Shadows from the pulsing lights stretched unnaturally. 2 guards at the far end shifted uneasily. Kane rolled a micro-drone from the duct above. It emitted a burst of heat and light, mimicking a hostile breach. Both guards turned toward it, weapons raised. Kane dropped silently behind them. 2 strikes, 2 bodies lowered without sound. Inside the cell. The door's seal hissed as he bypassed it. The small space smelled of antiseptic and cold metal. Rios blinked at the figure in black armor, visor glinting faintly. Her voice was hoarse. I thought you were dead. Kane crouched, checking the restraints. I am. She gave a faint laugh that ended in a cough. Good to see you anyway. Can you walk? Not fast. He slipped a med nano injector against her arm. Then I'll carry you. Chapter closer. Kane lifted her, the weight solid but manageable. Through the grate above, the sound of boots and alien voices grew closer. He tapped his comm to a silent channel, his voice no louder than a breath. Package secured. In the ventilation shadow, the 2 vanished, leaving only the empty cell and a cold tray of untouched vials. The hum of the Bloodfang's engines was a constant vibration through the metal under Kane's boots. Rios's weight shifted against his shoulder with each step. Her breathing was shallow but steady, the med nano infusion buying her enough strength to stay conscious. He moved through service ducts lit only by the faint glow of his visor overlay. Patrol routes appeared as ghostly red lines, shifting with every Dominion broadcast update. The lockdown was tightening. Obstacle 1, sealed bulkhead. The next junction was blocked by a heavy blast door. Kane crouched, placing Rios gently against the wall. This won't take long, he said. Her eyes tracked his movements, still fogged from days of interrogation. You're too calm for someone about to get trapped on an alien warship. Calm doesn't trip alarms. He pulled a wafer-thin device from his belt, sliding it into the door's access panel. A quiet pulse passed through the circuit, tricking the lock into a maintenance reset. The door eased open just enough for them to slip through. Vrochol's search. On the command deck, Vrochol stood before a wall of holodisplays, each showing a section of the ship. Guards moved in coordinated sweeps, but no trace of the intruder appeared. Sector 9, report, he ordered. Static answered. The feed flickered, then showed an empty corridor. His claws tapped the console. He is here. I can feel it. Trap corridor. Kane moved into a narrow hall lined with coolant pipes. A faint hiss echoed from somewhere ahead. His visor flagged thermal signatures, 2 guards waiting in an intersecting passage. He set Rios down again, pressing her hand to the wall. Stay still. Close your eyes when I tell you. She managed a weak nod. Kane slid a small sphere down the corridor. It rolled until it reached the intersection, then burst into a silent flash of polarized light. The guards staggered, blinded. Kane stepped in, 1 strike each, then dragged them out of sight. Psychological strike. He took 1 guard's communicator, patched it into his own system, and broadcast a single sentence across the internal security channel, in Terran Standard. The ghost is here. It repeated twice before the channel cut. The effect was immediate. Patrols doubled back, abandoning assigned sweeps. Reports of movement came from opposite ends of the ship, each chasing shadows that weren't there. Vrochol's realization. He froze as the message played in his own earpiece. The words were not translated. Whoever sent them wanted him to understand directly. He turned to his second-in-command. Seal Hangar Bay 2. Now. Approach to extraction point. Kane's planned exit was through an auxiliary maintenance airlock near the ship's dorsal spine. It was lightly guarded in normal conditions, but with the lockdown, it would be swarming within minutes. They moved fast, Kane supporting most of Rios's weight. She gritted her teeth, refusing to slow him down. You do this often? She asked, her voice rough but steady. Often enough to know it only works once per ship. Final confrontation. The hangar was a cavern of steel and shadow, the far wall lined with docked fighters. Kane and Rios slipped along the edges, moving between crates. Vrochol stepped from behind a support strut, blocking their path. His armor caught the light, scaled plates rippling with embedded energy veins. You think you've won by reaching me? He said, voice low. I think you've already lost, Kane replied. You hide because you fear us. Kane shook his head. I hide so you never see the strike until it's too late. Vrochol's claws flexed. You'll never leave this ship alive. Kane tapped a control on his wrist. A beacon in Vrochol's armor activated, invisible to Zora's sensors but locked to a frequency known only to UTF intelligence. Even if I don't, Kane said, you'll keep wondering if I'm still here. The exit. Before Vrochol could respond, Kane dropped a smoke sphere. Dense vapor flooded the hangar, obscuring sight lines. Through the haze, he moved to the airlock, Rios tight against his side. Outside, a stealth retrieval drone latched to the hull. Magnetic clamps sealed to their suits, yanking them into the void. The drone disengaged within seconds, vanishing into the asteroid field before the blood faun could trace it. Black site recovery. When Rios woke, she was in a dim med bay. Her wrists were wrapped, for lines feeding nutrients into her veins. Kane sat in the corner, helmet resting on the floor beside him. They'll call it a prisoner exchange, he said. No record you were taken. No record I brought you back. She managed a faint smile. Guess that makes it our secret. He stood, adjusting his gloves. Rest. You'll need it. Vrochol's aftermath. On the blood faun, Vrochol stood alone in his quarters. The hangar was sealed, the crew forbidden from discussing the breach. Yet in the quiet, his comm unit pulsed. A faint voice came through, Kane's, in Terran Standard. She leaves with me. You'll wonder for the rest of your life how. It repeated once, then went silent. Earth orbit, Epilogue. Kane stood in the shadows of the orbital facility's observation deck. Earth turned slowly below, its oceans catching sunlight in silver streaks. Voss approached, stopping beside him. They'll come again. He didn't look away from the planet. Let them.